How Russian propaganda supports the Kremlin's intimidation of nuclear war and lies about mobilization of Hungarians in Zakarpattia. Next in our weekly review.
Weapons supplied to Ukraine will lead to escalation of conflict. Russian propaganda is working hard to doubt the necessity and expediency of giving Ukraine military support. Military aid to Ukraine prolongs the war. Countries that provide military aid to Ukraine becoming weaker, and weapons supplied to Ukraine make no sense, are among well-known messages Kremlin spreads. Having no success in manipulating Ukraine's partners, Russia has started to threaten the world with the escalation of the war. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov stated that the situation when Kyiv needs new weapons and the West encourages these demands is a dead end and leads to escalation.
The situation is quite a stalemate, as it leads to a significant escalation and to the fact that NATO is more and more directly involved in the conflict. But it is incapable of potentially changing the course of events. The special military operation will continue.
Russian propaganda is trying to cast doubt among the Western audience and to deprive Ukraine of military aid. However, Kremlin already uses the entire range of weapons during attacks on Ukraine.
Systematic shelling of frontline cities, accumulation of ordnance, redeployment of troops, and additional forced mobilization in RF surely does not indicate RF's readiness for peace. These are direct signs of significant escalation. Therefore, weapons, and more weapons for Ukraine.
While spreading the narrative about the so-called escalation, Russia is also distributing its old recurring disinformation message about the involvement of the West in the war. Kremlin claims that the West and NATO in particular are directly involved in Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. It is challenging for the Russian government to explain to its population and the whole world why the so-called Second Army cannot capture Ukraine, and Kremlin says that it is fighting the entire NATO and the West instead. So Russian media outlets are trying to mention the West while covering the war in Ukraine in as many ways as possible. This week, Russian so-called journalists said that imported military equipment in Ukraine will be managed not only by the Ukrainian military, but also by American professionals.
It won't be possible to quickly train Ukrainian crews, and NATO demands from Kyiv to start an offensive already in March-April. It is very likely that imported military equipment will be operated not only by the Ukrainian military, but also American professionals under the guise of tourists and volunteers.
The reaction of Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, to an interview of Sky News with Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, can sum up this week's Russian propaganda claims about the West.
The silly figure in a green greased t-shirt depends on a 1000% on NATO weapons and Western money. Without them, there will be no Ukraine, and he and his camarilla will not last a day.
Medvedev clearly shows the diplomatic level of modern Russia with the help of angry publications and public humiliation. The agony of Russian high-ranking officials only proves the criticality and tension of the situation in the Kremlin. The reason for the aggravation was probably official statements regarding the transfer of tanks to Ukraine by the Western allies, Center for the Countering Disinformation reports. USA conducted HIV experiments on armed forces of Ukraine. The Russian Ministry of Defense has claimed that the United States allegedly conducted HIV-related experiments in Ukraine, in particular on Ukrainian servicemen.
An example is the experiments related to HIV infection, which have been conducted by American specialists on the territory of Ukraine since 2019. Please note that the target groups are not only patients at high risk of infection, convicts or drug addicts, but also representatives of the armed forces of Ukraine.
The agency claims that American scientists have conducted HIV-related experiments in Ukraine since 2019, in particular on Ukrainian servicemen. This topic is not new for Russian propagandists. Previously, Kremlin's so-called journalists found a promising topic for fakes about the production of biological weapons in Ukraine. In addition, the diplomats of the Russian Federation even tried to organize a meeting of the United Nations Security Council, saying that they supposedly have new documents that confirm the existence of biolaboratories in Ukraine. However, no signs of Ukraine's bioweapons labs have been found after further Russian claims. Ukraine conducts massive mobilization of Hungarians in Zakarpattia. Russian media, referring to publications in the Hungarian media, spread information that the Ukrainian authorities allegedly found a way to solve the Hungarian question in Zakarpattia. A mass mobilization of ethnic Hungarians is allegedly taking place in the region.
Almost every settlement in Zakarpattia has been forced to join the army for several days. In the area of the city of Berehovo in Nejiholos, on Sunday the market was surrounded. 70 people were taken away from there, journalists note.
On January the 26th, the Hungarian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Petr Szijjártó, made the following statement.
Hungarians are dying in this war side by side with Ukrainians because Hungarians living in Zakarpattia are also being drafted into the Ukrainian army. In recent days, we have seen video footage of how it sometimes happens cruelly.
This statement was also picked up by the Russian media, who began spreading the news that violent mobilization of ethnic Hungarians is allegedly taking place in Zakarpattia, as the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade suffered heavy losses near Soledar. In fact, accusations against Ukraine of mobilization allegedly based on the ethnic principle are completely groundless, Stop Fake Project states.
Ethnic Hungarians, like representatives of other ethnic minorities living on the territory of Ukraine, are primarily citizens of Ukraine. According to the law of Ukraine on military duty and military service, the protection of the homeland, independence and territorial integrity of Ukraine is a constitutional duty of all citizens of Ukraine, regardless of their ethnic origin.
The representatives of the Hungarian community of Ukraine themselves criticized the mentioned publications in the Hungarian media and the propagandistic statements of some Hungarian politicians.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Latest news, trends, and analytics on all about Ukraine. Like, share, and subscribe. Any questions, proposals, and comments, contact us via email.